Hi, it's Marianne of MW's Designs. I decided I wanted to paint a raven or a crow for Halloween. So I started by looking at a number of reference photos, and then using a piece of copy paper, I sketched on the various parts of the bird, thinking where I wanted them to be placed. So the head, and then just a little neck, and going off to the side for the wings, and then the body of the bird. And I wanted it to be on a little perch, so I drew that first before the legs, and then I figured out approximately where the legs might go, the fat part, and then it bends and the leg is skinnier. And then the little bit of the foot that hangs on to that side, and the other part and it has a claw, so it goes around kind of like that. And then a little further back, the other leg, a little bit smaller, because it's behind, and then again the foot and the claw. So this is pretty rough at this point, and it did involve a lot of erasing, going back to my photo and checking the various features. But I carried on, and I was finally able to finish a drawing that I was fairly happy with. And I think as I have been doing more drawing, I have improved a little bit, and also by looking very carefully at photos, and if you have the opportunity, real life animals or objects. So anyway, I have my drawing and my watercolor paper, and I'm putting the graphite paper with the dark side down and drawing on top of my sketch. And I'm going to clip the edges down with some paper clips. You can use whatever you like. I just do the top corners, so that when I'm in the process of tracing it, I want to be able to peek underneath. And I find it easier to do it when it's turned this way. So I started with the beak and going kind of in a logical order so that I don't miss parts. And just trace over everything. And I'm not going to trace the whole thing, but that's how I go about it. And when I think I have it all done, I can check underneath and see how it's coming. So I'll set that aside, and now I am ready to start painting. Here's my traced bird, and I decided I wanted to have a bit of a colored background and maybe with a little bit of texture. So I'm actually going to use this paper underneath because it's a little bit messy. I just used a large flat brush to put some clear water on first so that I can do wet and wet for this background. And then I have another flat brush, and I'm dipping it in some water that I have cleaned my brush off previously, so it's quite a dilute mixture. This is Payne's Gray, and I'm just going to put it here, and I'm not sure how dark I want it to be, So I might just add a little more of the Payne's Gray from my palette here, right from the pan. And I have a little container here too that I can dip it off so that it's not too intense, because I just want it as the background. And I'm just holding on to the corner of this so that it doesn't get away on me. And then just go over it and maybe get a little more there. And it will dry a bit lighter, of course. So I think I'm happy with that. And I'm going to set that aside to dry. And now I have one that is dry. And I'm going to use a little bit smaller brush. This still is a flat brush. It's a number 8. And what I want to do with this is have kind of an outline with the darker paint, and then I'll go in the middle with less dark so that there will be variations in the color and give a better effect for the various parts of the bird. So I'm going to get my brush wet just in this dilute Payne's Gray, and then dip right into the pan so that I get a nice sharp line. And I'm again going to turn my piece of paper sideways, and then I'm just going to go along here. I like the flat edge brush because I can get quite a good line, and I want it to be fairly dark along the edge and as smooth an edge as I can make it. And then the ends of the feathers are kind of chunky, and I really like that effect. So I just come down into these little chunky parts. And then I'm going to come down around the top of the wing. Again, keeping it quite dark, filling in that part that I missed. Okay, and into the beak, a little more paint there. And if you have to turn it, that's okay too. And down into the fat part of the leg. I'll do the rest of the legs afterwards. Okay, and then this part of the wing. Okay, now I'm thinking about the eye here, how I want to do it, but I'm just going to leave kind of a space around the eye. Let's do that part first. And you maybe want to have a cloth or a paper towel handy so that you don't have too much water. And then I'm just going to pull this down from the darker part and fill in the middle. So that center portion of each piece is a little bit lighter. and I think it gives kind of a nice effect. And then you can see the various parts of the bird. Okay, and I'm just going to keep that area around the eye open for now, because I'll go in later with a smaller brush. Okay, a little bit more paint and water. Okay, a little bit, I didn't do this part. And if it has some variations in there, I like that effect because it gives a little more texture. And you can go back and do some little extra lines too if you like for the textured part of the wing. And now I'm going to go around some of that again because some of it isn't as dark as I want it. And if you want to change any of your lines, you can adjust them. Okay, that's probably pretty good now, and I'll get the more dilute water. And if there are a few little white streaks in there, that gives a good effect too. And just pull up some of that darker part to make it a wee bit darker and get that nice texture. And get it all filled in as much as you want. And actually, when I'm doing these streaky parts, I'm using just the very side, not the flat part of the brush. So then you get kind of skinnier parts. Okay. And I think that's probably okay. I might just blend that part a little bit. Now I'm going to take a very tiny brush. This is a 5/0. And then I'm going to wet it first a little bit. And then I'm going to dip right into the pan again. And okay, go very carefully around the eye so that I keep that shape, and that circle around the eye can be darker. And then clean my brush off. I maybe want to spread that out a little bit. And if you want to have a little dark crease above the eye, there seems to be something like that. Well, actually, I'm going to let that dry a bit, so in the meantime, I'll just put a dark pupil in here. And if you can leave a little spot for the highlight, that's kind of nice too. And then let's see if we can get that darker spot above the eye. I think it's just kind of a crease. I'm not really sure, but I noticed that in some of the photos there is a darker part. over the eye. Okay, so now let's do the feet, and I think I want the feet to be fairly dark so that they show up well. And the little part that curls around, and however you need to move your paper, go ahead. And this needs a little refining so that I get a nice smooth line. And you can kind of blend in that darker part into the body. And a little bit more for the back leg. This is quite an easy project. Once you get the drawing done, the painting is really fun. I love doing this. And it's not too difficult. Okay, so there's my bird, and I'm going to go back to my flat number 8 brush. Maybe get a little more water here. Get my brush wet, but then dip it into the dark paint, and I'm just going to get kind of a line along the edges. Let's see, how do I want to do this? Okay, let's try doing this straight down. And if you pull the brush towards you, it works pretty well to get a relatively straight line, and I don't care if it's entirely straight. Now I'm going to have a little bit more wet, and then just go along here so that I have a bit more color in the center, but not as dark as the edges. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. And now I am going to try doing a sentiment, because it could be a Halloween card. And I think I want to have it go from about, let's make a little pencil mark. And if you want to do your sentiment ahead of time, and on another piece of paper, and just cut it out or use a stamp or whatever you like, but I'm actually going to use my tiny brush again. And because it's Halloween, I am not too worried about my lettering, because Halloween lettering can be kind of jagged and sloppy. So it will probably work really well. I'm going to say Happy Halloween. Just make sure I have lots of paint on my brush. The letters can be kind of crooked, or some parts of them can be fat, and some parts can be skinnier, slanted, irregular in lots of different ways, and it's kind of fun. Okay, I didn't quite go as far as I want to, so sometimes I put in an exclamation mark, or sometimes I just add some little dots, and that makes it balance out a bit better. Okay, and I also wanted to have an edge around this, and I was experimenting with little dots, and I liked the texture and the effect that it made, and it's fun to do this all the way around the card. A little tedious, but definitely fun. I like doing it. So all around the card. It gives a nice texture. I'm just going to do the bottom, I think, but you can go all the way around, or you can do some other kind of border, whatever suits you and whatever you like to do. And to make it have just a little more Halloween effect, I'm going to give this crow or raven a spider, because I have learned that all kinds of birds actually do eat spiders, which I guess isn't that surprising, but I didn't know that. So there's the little web thread, and just a little tiny spider with his legs, 8 legs. Okay, let's make the body and the head a little bit bigger. Okay, so there's 6, and then it will have 2 coming out the front. Okay, so that's how I decorated my painting, and it was a lot of fun. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, and I would really like to hear your comments if you want to put something below. And if you're not subscribed and want to be subscribed, please hit the button below and the bell beside it, and you'll be notified of my upcoming videos. So happy Halloween to everyone, and have fun if you try this project. Thanks for watching.